Victor Albert Regnier. You're the author of Housing Design for an Increasingly Older Population. You are a renowned architect, researcher, and teacher dedicated to improving housing in community settings for older adults in particular. You hold a unique joint professorship at the USC School of Architecture and the Leonard Davis School of Gerontology, reflecting on your dual expertise here. You're the only individual to be a fellow of the American Institute of Architects and the Gerontology Society of America. Your distinguished career includes serving as USC's Dean of the School of Architecture between 1992 and 1996. You authored 10 books and over 60 articles on elderly housing and community planning. Your latest book, Housing Design for an Increasingly Older Population, explores innovative housing solutions for the frail elderly. You have received numerous accolades, including 2 Fulbright Research Awards and the M. Powell Lawton Award for Applied Research. Over the past 4 years, you have consulted on over 400 building projects worldwide, contributing to more than 50 design awards. It's a very impressive background, by the way. Super impressive. What inspired you to dedicate your career to the intersection of architecture and gerontology? That's, by the way, you're the first guest we ever had that kind of combines both worlds, right? And,
right.
And try to put, his knowledge in one space, pretty much towards the other, and vice versa. So what really inspired you to get there?
Well, how can I best answer this? In the 70s, the federal government had the common sense to create a whole range of training programs throughout the United States, and what were considered to be world-class institutions of various sorts. And because USC has this very unique depth in gerontology, they decided that, among other disciplines, architecture and urban regional planning really made sense. So they got a training program which picked up not only all of my tuition, but paid me $500 back then in 1970 a month to go to school. So I was first attracted by the fact that it was free and it was like a job. Second of all, I started to explore some of the reasons why the federal government had this great insight, and discovered that, by the way, we are on a very interesting kind of track. This was back in 1970 when no one was really talking about it. And if you fast forwarded to the days we have today, or another 5 to 10 years from now, you would find that we have the possibility of being in a really difficult position in terms of the aging of the general population. And of course, we thought about that with regard to the United States. It is worldwide. In fact, there are countries like Japan and China and Korea that are in worse shape than we are. Partly because they have restrictions on immigration, and they haven't really paid that much attention to the idea of encouraging fertility, let's put it that way, so that we would have more children. And of course, we have added many years, decades, to basically the life expectancy of people. So there's a chance that you probably will live to be 100. That chance isn't huge. It's about 20%, 18 to 20%, because you're a male. Now, if you had a child, regardless of gender, that child would have a 35 to 40% chance of living to be 100. Okay? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Oh, are these researchers or?
No, these are normal human beings that are born.
I mean, what's causing this extended?
Well, we know a lot about chronic conditions, and we know a lot about the science of longevity. And we're telling people to pay attention. Some of it's pretty simple, like nutrition, eat the right things, get some exercise, which is an elixir. If you do that, you pretty much have trumped the whole thing. And social exchange. Those are the three most important things to pay close attention to if you want to live to be old and also competent and able. So we have a lot of people who are doing that, and the result is that we just have a huge number of older people. The population of 65 plus in the United States doubles every 40 years. Okay, so we're doubling the population. The population over the age of 85 triples every 20 years. And we don't even know what number the 100 plus is. We know it's the fastest growing cohort, but we have no idea because we have to wait. We are measuring that as life goes on. So longevity really is causing a great deal of it. And that started a long time ago, maybe 100 years ago, when we started to tackle different kinds of medical problems and various issues that would frequently lead to death. At the turn of the century and after that. So we have seen. I mean, the statistics are kind of amazing. For every year, every calendar year, life expectancy grows 2.5 months. You want me to repeat that? For every year.
For every year.
2.5 months longer to live. So my brother, who's a year younger than me, has 2.5 months more than I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he's a year younger and he's gonna, gain that benefit. Mm-hmm. So it is amazing. And we're not having as many children as we had. The only thing that keeps the U.S. kind of, head above water is that we have in-migration. And bringing a lot of people into the country also reduces the overall age, population average, partly because young people in-migrate for the most part, or people, not older people, but people in their 0 to 35 year age range. So some people say, gee, we have to worry about global warming, right? Yeah, of course we have to worry about global warming, but we kind of know how to fix that. We just have to have the courage to do it and want to spend the money and want to and have the political resolve for it. This one, we have no answer for. There is no answer to this. It's going to go on and it's going to, it's going to have all kinds of consequences if we can't figure out how to deal with it more effectively. And everyone wants to live. They'd rather live than die. So you're not finding a lot of people saying, gee, I don't care about this, because everybody has a stake in it, right? So
that's the thing. It's just like, is it a good thing or a bad thing? It
is a thing. What can I say?
It's a thing. It depends how you look at it.
It affects your parents. It affects your children. It affects, all the people you care about too.
It affects your economy as well. It affects Social Security Administration for sure.
Right.
They're not happy about it.
So your question was, how'd you get into this? My answer was they paid me. And by the way, I was prescient enough to look at what the future was going to be like and knew this was going to occur.
Oh my God, back in the 70s. You saw this back in the 70s.
Yes.
And you started. Wow.
Well, I didn't want to dedicate my life to a particular topic if I didn't understand whether or not it had a future, right? So I spent a lot of time thinking about it and reading what other people were writing about it as well. But no one was paying much attention to it. And now everybody is paying attention to it. In fact, if you read a lot of the kind of future related predictions for China, their own people, that is, their own governmental agencies, are saying that in another 10 years, it's going to go off the cliff because they're not going to have people. They can't keep the same kind of manufacturing.
Produce.
Yes.
Production. They can't continue to produce with the same frequency that they do and throughput that they have today.
And you may know enough about Russia to know it's not popular to go to Russia and immigrate. The United States, it's too popular, according to some politicians, but everyone would like to come to the United States. So we have no problem with in-migration. But some societies like Japan, they don't allow it. For the most part, you never can achieve citizenship, and they discourage immigration. And because of that, Japan is going to actually see a 20% decrease in their overall population by 2060. So it's a big deal, and it is affecting the world. And about the only thing that we're looking at that may have some impact is robotics, artificial people, or ways in which we can capture the intelligence of an individual and place it in mechanical.
It doesn't solve the problem because you have old people that needs to be paid and they need to spend.
That's right.
How do you support them?
That's right.
You gotta find a way where you extend their productivity span, I should say.
That's exactly right. And the problem, of course, is that we have fewer people in that age range of 18 to 65, which is really the group through Social Security that's supporting most of the older people in this country, and it's getting smaller. So in addition to losing money and not having enough, the number of people that contribute to that are reducing.
As well.
Yeah. So it is a big deal. I mean, it doesn't have as much to do with architecture. All we've talked about is demographics, but that is something that is a major consideration and a major issue. So.
And I want to tie this back to your other field of specialty, which is architecture. And you were the dean at USC between 1992 and 1996,
right?
Dean of the School of Architecture. How did your background and knowledge, by then you would have done decades, at least 20 years probably, of research and knowledge in gerontology. How did that impact your vision, direction, the way that you steered that particular school those 4 or 5 years?
Yeah. In terms of my research trajectory, it did nothing except screw it up. Because running a school of architecture is very different than doing your own research or scholarship. Yeah. So for 4 years, I put it on the back burner and I didn't do anything. And then I started to, publish, books and articles after that. So what I did learn from being dean was how to manage and how to lead and how to cajole and how to get people to listen to me and to move collectively in the right direction. So it was useful from that perspective, but it didn't help my research.
Did it help you introduce probably further courses or further scientific material into the study of architecture in general?
Sure.
So a new generation of architects would go out keeping that in mind, that we have a problem looming in the horizon.
Right. Yeah. So I teach a seminar course in aging, and I teach a studio in healthcare and aging as well. So that led to creating a kind of specialization around my interests. But School of Architecture at USC is quite large. We have 100 people who are teaching.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's about 25 of them or 30 of them are tenured or tenure track. And the rest are, people practicing in the community that come in and teach a studio or are involved in that way part-time. So, people kind of, if they have an aging question, they know who to go to. So there's not really much ambiguity about it. But no, I didn't proselytize in the school. My work has been primarily trying to convince people um, in public policy positions as well as architects and others that we have a stake in this, and we can really create much better environments. And my major focus has been on looking at places in the world who do it better than we do. And of course, the best settings are in Northern Europe. Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland.
Do they have the same trend over there?
Yes, for the most part, they do. They are paying more attention to encouraging immigration and also basic fertility. So, all of these are Northern European countries that have a very strong kind of social component associated with the way in which they're very different than we are in terms of their society. They have a cradle to grave attitude about taking care of people. And of course, they have high tax rates as well that support those kinds of social programs and housing and so forth. But they have particularly spent a lot of time, energy, and resources in exploring the idea of how to develop housing for older, frail people. So if you go to a nursing home, for example, in Denmark, it's a different experience than going into a Medicaid nursing home in the United States, which is frankly very scary. It is a whole different attitude. And so I point out to people, we should be doing what Denmark does, or what Sweden does, or what a lot of other countries that care more deeply about their populations and in need, because that's really our obligation as a society. We need to think about stuff like that. But it's great to have examples to point to and say, we can do better. It's not impossible. We have to spend a little more money, and we have to be more inventive, and we have to really care about it. And unfortunately, we don't do any of that.
Speaking of doing better, what are some of the most significant changes you've seen in the field of elderly housing over the years?
Well, one of the things, of course, there are many things, but if you want to talk about the most positive aspects, it's been the creation of housing arrangements, albeit they are what we would consider to be age segregated, therefore just older people. But those settings, if you just look at Del Webb, for example, as one example, there are many other types of providers, have really created these special environments for people. They're kind of like, I don't know, when people say, gee, should we do that with society? I say, well, I don't know. I work in a place where everybody is between 18 and 24, graduates, and they seem to get along pretty well, and they have a good time, and they enjoy peer relationships and all of that. Why not have that kind of setting for somebody who's older as well, so that they can connect with other people that they can identify with or share the same values or whatever? So those models are pretty interesting. And of course, they have evolved not through any kind of support. We don't pay for the production of that kind of housing. It evolves on its own because people want to live that way. So that's one interesting example. And if you look back, I don't know, 50 years ago, we had just the beginning of that movement, and now it's pretty popular. And we also are paying more attention to how to help people stay in their own homes. Again, that is something that most older people want to do, and we don't have the same kind of programs that you would expect to find in these Northern European countries as well. So that's also starting to become, I think, more possible for a greater number of people to take advantage of.